I don't know. I mean, Tom and Karen have taken a year off to travel. His son Julian, before he thinks they're dorks and doesn't want to hang around with them anymore. I mean, I've witnessed that. I mean, when they're 16, isn't that when you're supposed to bury them again? Or something like that. So, but I mean, they're using this year to do what he wants to do. You know, to ski the slopes of whatever mountain, you know, to hike the Grand Canyon. Now, why not you? And we say this, and I'll say it over and over and over again, because up to you. We're in the same business. Your choice, what you do with it. But I guess from Craig and I, we hope you join us, because it's absolutely awesome, and we have a great time. And there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room. So here's Craig, and I'll catch you later.
Okay. Actually, it is interesting when you listen to what Anna was talking about there with just some of the different places and things that have happened, because the 17 years, I mean, we've always been busy, because both of us are that sort of people. You know, when we get stuck into something, we get stuck into it. But the great thing about the business is, because sometimes people, the only time they'll see you is when you're in a suit and a tie, maybe doing a meeting or something like this, so they think that's what you do all the time. And the interesting thing is, I was trying to work it out on average with having developed a business, how much time we spend like on holiday type things. And last time I worked it out, it was about somewhere between 14 and 16 weeks of the year. So I can handle working hard for the rest. And when we say working hard, is each day you choose the hours in which you do. And the interesting thing, if I go back on getting started, I think the first thing I always do with people is say, why did you even look at this in the first place? What was your situation that caused you to look in the first place? Now, in my case, for me personally, why I looked was not that I was dissatisfied with what I was doing in my job, because at that point I wasn't dissatisfied, but I was frustrated with, I didn't seem to be getting anywhere. And I looked at people who were doing what I was doing in the industry I was in, and I didn't see a lot of difference between what they were doing and what I was doing. And the other thing for me, probably the biggest reason I looked, was back then with what I was doing with my sport of triathlon. The part that frustrated me about having a job was the inflexibility of it. Because what I was trying to do, training, needed some flexibility, and a job didn't allow the flexibility, because there was a set hours that I had to work. And also, it wasn't, in the job I was in, it wasn't necessarily a set hours thing, because with computer systems, if you were working on a site and the computer was down, well, you couldn't pack up at 5 o'clock and go home. You had to stay there until it was fixed. So that was my frustration, was the fact that I didn't have the ability to control my time, nor the ability to control my money. So that's why I looked, and part of that process was I did want to train full-time for my sport. I wanted to put more time into it, because I'd gotten to a reasonable level in Australia, but I couldn't go any further, because I just couldn't physically fit any more time into what I was doing training-wise. So when my cousin called me, Phil, looking back, we were living in Knoxfield in a little 10-square house. I was driving an old Ford station wagon, and I was driving an old Ford Laser. And Phil's phone call was, and Phil's, if you understand the temperaments, Phil's 40 points phlegmatic, right? Or if you understand the other one, what is it, a 40S? Highest, and he goes, "G'day." I said, "Hi Phil, how you going?" "Yeah, great." He says, "Listen mate, you want to make some money?" I said, "Well, you know that." He says, "Yeah, good, come over to my place tomorrow night. I've got some joker come over to show us how to do it." Now, here we are 17 years later from that phone call. Now, the point I make with that is, don't try and be perfect. Just do it. Sometimes what people do is they get so uptight about trying to contact someone, where you cannot get any more basic than that contact. Now, the reason it worked was because I was looking. If I wasn't looking, he could have done any type of phone call and it wouldn't have worked. Does everyone understand that? So don't get frustrated. If you call someone who's not looking, you didn't do anything wrong. Nothing you would have done would have made any difference as far as getting that person to look at the plan. Now, the interesting thing is, what got me into the business was different to what got me building the business. All right? And that could be the same for you. What actually got you to this point might not be what actually gets you building the business. And I'll give you the example. What got me into the business back when I saw the plan in 85 was making $1,008 a month. That was in the plan. It was $1,008 when you got to, I think it was 21%. Was that it? I'm trying to remember. I know $1,008 was in the plan, but I looked at it and all I remember was, gee, if I could make an extra $1,000 a month out of this on top of Anna's income and my income, that'd make a huge difference, and that was enough to have my interest to get started. But actually what got me building the business was a month later when in conversation it came up that I could actually replace my job income and train full-time for my sport if I built the business to the emerald level or above. Now, up until that point, even though it was only that first month, I hadn't even assimilated that was a possibility. Once I understood that it was a possibility, from that point on, the rest was history, because I became totally zoned in and focused on getting to emerald so as I could get rid of my job so I could train. That was an emotional motivator for me. So it wasn't a money thing. It was, although money was needed to have out of the business in order to do that, it was a time thing. So different people are going to get motivated by different things. So once that was clear and we started building it, as I said, the rest was history from that point, because my attitude at that stage was, well, if I'm going to do this, let's get it done, because I don't want to be doing this and working a job at the same time for too long. Right? Because what happens is sometimes people say, but the business it becomes inconvenient when you try. I said, no, the job's what's inconvenient. If that wasn't there, if the job wasn't there, the business would never be inconvenient. Is that right? So it's where people get their thinking process out of whack when they're trying to be successful in their own business. Because this is a volunteer business, it's not like you have to do it. It's not like you've got your house mortgaged to the hilt and directors' guarantees and all these things that a traditional business would have. So it's working out like, why am I going to get the business going? An interesting thing is, we're talking before about getting started. I remember, I look at, say, Tom and Karen's lifestyle today with their home out and up at Plenty and what they've got around the world. And I remember when we first got going in business, how the system used to work is you'd place your order, once you got to the platinum level, you'd place your order for your tapes. And then we used to drive out from Knoxfield out to Upper Plenty each week to pick up our tape of the weeks for our group. But not only would we have to pick up our tape of the weeks came as the tape, but then you had to actually stick the labels on every tape as you picked them up. So as your group got bigger, you had to stay there longer to stick all these labels onto the tapes to pick your tape of the week up. So it was an hour's drive over there to pick up the tapes, and then an hour's drive back home again weekly, plus the hour or two to stick all the labels on after plan time. Now, as I said, some people go, oh, you were lucky when you guys got started back then. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, well, you could look at it that way. And it's like, I remember we went to a meeting at Peter and Helen McKenna's place when they were living here in Melbourne, when they were rubies in the business. And it was a little place in Eaglemont. And I look at Peter and Helen's lifestyle today and where they're living now up on the Gold Coast. But I remember being in their home. We had a meeting there, like for an IDA meeting there, and there was about 20 people at the meeting, and it was in their little home in Eaglemont. And what happens, people look today and think, oh yeah, well gee, they probably got in at the right time or they were lucky. And it's not that at all. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of focus, the right attitude, and a big dream, and using the system and pattern to build it. I remember I was just listening to Peter and Ginny's tape that just came out, and they were talking about their flat that had the fire. That was quite a funny story, actually. But I remember going and doing, Anna and me went there and did was it a go-getter or a leadership? Go-getter? A go-getter meeting, and I think there was about 10 people there, and James had driven over from Adelaide, and James Beecham, who's a diamond today. So in Peter and Ginny's group, there was about 8 people that were go-getters at that time in this little flat in Hawthorn. And then you look today, the beautiful home they've got and the lifestyle, and see, what my encouragement to you is, as you're getting started in your business, remember the people you're talking to. Remember the groups you're working with. Remember, because down the track, you're going to have stories like that too. Right? And it's always good to link things into, I remember I was in the Air Force when I first joined, and you know how certain things take you back to certain times in your life, and music's one of the really good things. And I remember when I was in the Air Force, they had 2 songs that used to play on the radio while I was in this barracks with 30 other guys, and as a 17-year-old away, left home and now in the Air Force, going out to see the world and doing all that sort of stuff, was the Doobie Brothers' Blackwater and Barry Manilow's Brandy. Who remembers those? It's funny how, and I remember when I was in school and I got sick and I was into my sport, and I was going to win the school 400 metre race. And they were doing it, the first time they were doing it at Olympic Park. And I got sick, and I had something that I should have been sick for months. But I remember I was so upset about getting down with this thing that the whole street, there's 17 people in the street came down with this disease, and it was terrible. And I thought, oh man, what am I going to do? And I was absolutely distraught. And I found out about it on the Thursday, and the race was on the Tuesday. And I remember it was one of those things where I was so focused on that particular goal that this thing went through me, like through my body, and it was gone by the Tuesday. Whereas everyone else was down sick for 2 months. And I remember during that time, one of the things there was a program on, and I don't know if anyone remembers the term supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, right? And that was on during the time when I was there, and it was just one of those things that brings back a memory. So anyway.